Thanks for joining me today. This is my second time doing this, so I figured it'd be a good way to start out with the first few episodes with a bang,
Oh, right. Well, it's an honor to be on here. Thank you very much.
It's an honor to have you, man. You're really like a bunch of years now. You've been just destroying the scene, and just ripping it up. I mean, you got such crazy skills, man. So I mean, it's like you gotta just do it. And you're one of these dudes who just got it in your head that you wanted to be a musician, and that's what you wanted to do full time, and you're doing it pretty. You're right there, man.
Oh, thank you.
That's respectable for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's people are always very nice. They say stuff like, "Oh, you play great" and stuff. And like, I appreciate that, but I don't see it in my own mind. Like, I don't think I play good at all. So I'm always trying to get better and constantly practice and improve. And my thing has always been like, if I'm not the most talented person, I'll be the most hardworking. So I'm always gonna grind and hustle and play whatever shows I can and get my name out there.
Yeah.
And do everything I can to.
Totally. That's great.
There,
That's
yeah.
great. You're playing this week, hey?
Yeah. We're playing Friday night at Nashville's, with Greg Arcade, Julie Ferguson, and Past the Perimeter. It's like a country southern rock show with my band Reckon-So.
Right. Yeah.
And then with my own band, Ronnie Ladobruk and the Electric, we're opening for the Wild and the Lazies in Brandon.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing that you've been doing a bit of playing around town outside or around Manitoba outside of. You did a few outside of Winnipeg shows recently.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple like Ontario.
Oh yeah.
And,
well, even past Manitoba, then that's great. How's that? Got any juicy tour stories?
Well, I'm the most boring guy in my band. I'm the guy who will go back to the room or wherever we're staying and just practice guitar while everybody else does whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not the party animal, so I have no stories.
Just practicing on the tour bus.
Yeah. Well, I guess my crazy story would be staying up until 6 a.m. playing cards. What's it? Cards for Humanity?
Cards Against Humanity.
Against Humanity.
Yeah.
That was
That's funny how that works.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but that just goes back to what you're saying about being the most hardworking, and that's really how you set your goals and that's how you achieve them. Anyways, I mean, there's a whole thing about like you gotta know where you're trying to go, at least so to speak, a little bit before you can start hustling there. You gotta have a little bit of a plan, but it's I see what you mean with the whole like it doesn't feel that way to you because it's kind of like you acclimatize to any state that you're in. Like when you get into water that's really cold or really hot, it's like a shock at first, but then it kind of after a few minutes you get used to it. And it's the same thing with that kind of stuff, I always thought, and that's kind of where the contrast comes from when other people see it and go like, wow, that's so crazy, but then you say like every little intricacy of your own playing, so you see all these things and it's like, oh, I tried to do that and that didn't work, but this thing that I did anyways, you guys liked it, so but it's totally a matter of that. I find that it's just it's once you get used to it, it's just kind of normal, and you don't even really have to worry about it. You just focus and work. Yeah.
Well, now I'm at a point as a musician where I can play anything that I hear in my head, and that's always a point I wanted to get to.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm sure there's been times where you've heard something in your head and you gotta figure it out, and it's like now I'm at that point where I can hear it and translate it, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
But now I want to come up with crazier ideas and be the best musician that I could possibly be. So I like I said, I really appreciate when people are nice and give those compliments, but I think if I dwelled on them too long, I wouldn't have that same drive to
I completely get that. There's a ton of guys that like they practiced really hard when they were young and then got really good and then was kind of like oh, now I'm really good and I don't have to practice as much anymore, and then you kind of fall off it a little bit. You know, it happens more often than you know, people may or may not think. You know, it's kind of like pharmaceuticals these days. You know, they say the doctors are trying not to give them to you because then you build up the tolerance for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar in that way.
Well, a good thing to always do too is to go check yourself by watching some local musicians too. Like, if any time my ego gets out of check and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm nailing it, I'm doing good, I'll go watch Barry G. play guitar, and then it's like, get back to that practice room, man, because you were.
That's great. I love that. There's just every time I meet a new bass player in Winnipeg, I'm just like, wow, you know, I love new musicians and just new everything and in general. Like I jammed with my drummer's dad for the first time, who's also a drummer, recently, just last week, and I always love the first jam with somebody that you haven't really jammed with before, because then it's like, you know, it's a whole new total different experience that you haven't really interacted with before, and then that's how you get better at your thing, is by going and seeing those other dudes who can smoke, you know. I remember at the Tosinabasi clinic when they had here at Quest a couple years ago. He's like, yeah, if you're ever just having a problem with the ego, just go on YouTube and watch all those 12-year-old kids that can just out-shred you any day. And yeah, it's like, oh, most people don't want to go see that because it's scary to see that, you know. It's like, oh, you're right, I do have to fucking bust my ass.
Oh, you watch like an 11-year-old kid play a Paul Gilbert song, and it's just like, what you think back, what was I doing at 11 years old?
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that one. I wish I was playing guitar when I was 11.
So you were mentioning jamming with other players and stuff. Do you ever hit up any jams around the city or anything like that?
You know, I'm a little immobile right now, so it's kind of hard for me to get around right at this juncture. But I've been meaning to, and I looked them up, and I like to meet the guys, and I've gone occasionally, and yeah, I really have been meaning to do that. It's just, you know, been busy, and it's hard for me to get around sometimes. And then also is the matter of learning the material. You know, I went to a few last year when I first started wanting to get in on all that, and yeah, you know, I say you go out and you just hang out for the first couple nights, meet the people, learn the songs they're doing, go home and like learn the songs, and then come back and try it. And I kind of just didn't really take it past that first step yet. I still have the intention to at one point.
No, that's awesome, and that was a good way, like especially for me, like going to open jams like at the Royal George or something like that, and it's like that's another big ego check, because you go there thinking like, yeah, I'm a really good player, and then you get up with those guys, and then it's like, there's something else going on here. And
yeah,
it's like,
that's a big reason why I haven't done it too, because I'm just like, no, I'm not really there. You know, I kind of specialize right now, or at least what I've spent the most time working on is just like writing my own like weird eclectic shit with no rules. You know, and that's really where my house is where I can like sit down for a day and go through all the details of something that I like, and I like to really like. A lot of people say I like to overanalyze, but I really do enjoy like going right into the details of like, why are you doing this, and what's the theory behind it and stuff. And you know, it's spend a lot of time. I mean, the downside of doing that is then you spend a lot of time doing that, and like, especially when you get into theory and stuff, and you start with like, oh no, it has to be this way, you know. But no, it's never written like anything. It's something I'm trying to get my mind more out of it now, because I love studying the theory and like and jazz and stuff, because jazz is such a good example for that, because you have to learn the theory like so well, like to the T, but you have to be able to just like mold it as you're going, you know, and be able to just pull things from different categories at any required moment, you know, and it's a little freaky, yeah.
No, that's there's nothing wrong with being over like digging into everything too. Like anybody who kind of says don't do that, I don't know. Like I think it's cool when you can dig in and be like, oh, this is the theory behind that, and this is why this goes well with this. Because then, like you said, you can break out of that, and once you break out of that, then you got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really like that, and I really like when you're collaborating with somebody on writing something, that if you can, it's kind of hard to do, I think, sometimes, to communicate with somebody in a way that's effective to like combine your ideas in like a synergistic way. But man, when you do it's just really great. And when two people can come down and like with the same dictionary talk about something and go into the details and say like, this is why I think this is, and it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, well here's my justification. And it's like, I'm totally in on that. Like I don't like it really sometimes if somebody says or I mean like I don't like it, that doesn't really matter, but I tried to have a little bit more effective ways of doing sometimes. Yeah, when they oh geez, I kind of lost my train of thought with that.
Oh no worries, that's a well, like
yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about like was
Mm-hmm.
before you started playing in a band, and like were you writing stuff before you played in a band, and then how did that change when you joined a band? Because I'll tell you how it changed for me after, but I'm interested.
Yeah, no, well I was in a band like the day I started playing bass, so I've never really, I don't think I've not been in a band in my playing career. Yeah, I was in a Green Day cover band the day I started, so it was like literally the day I started, I was getting, my two friends were a drummer and a guitar player who would do some of these songs in grade 9, and they're like, yeah, I'll play bass, and I joined the guitar class that year, so they took me into the back room every day and just force-fed me power chords and American Idiot and Jesus of Suburbia and stuff like that. So I wasn't super focused on writing at that point, but we did eventually start writing, and then with me and Clay, we were writing together for APHELION like way before APHELION was what it is now, and before, because we've gone through a bunch of lineups over the years, even before we met Dan on drums with us now, who's been around for a bunch of years with us now, and that's our pretty solid lineup, you know. But before that, yeah, there was all these different lineup changes, and before that, it was just me and Clay writing on Guitar Pro, and yeah, I still use Guitar Pro for writing, and it's such a good creative outlet. And then, yes, and then ever since you really got to balance it between like how much time you spend like practicing what you already got, and you have to like keep up, and then writing new stuff, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of grows as I learn new theory as far as like it has how it's changed over time and interacting with the different musicians. Like Dizzy Mystics hasn't really started writing too much new stuff yet. For the second album we have, but like we don't have much complete stuff. We just got like riffs and ideas and like a couple of one-part songs, you know.
Right.
But those are all really really hot right now. I think just from the first time. All of us have been like throwing our ideas at each other after been working together and like hashing out our approach for so long. Now that we're writing together, it's kind of like we're used to working with each other now,
right,
so we know how we communicate with each other, and we can avoid that whole thing of like, oh no, but my idea, you know. It's like, oh no, well we can kind of like compromise, and I don't even like to say compromise because that makes it seem like people are not giving their full thing, you know, but it's like, no, when everybody puts in their thing, then I think that creates, like, say if there's 4 people combining their ideas, then it creates a 5th new thing, you know, that's better than any one of those 4. So that's really what I look for now, is that synergy with writing, because I think that's just better than anything I can come up with on my own.
Nice, yeah, no, that's awesome, and that's I think that's a great way to go about it, is to play with your band long enough to kind of get in that groove and be able to, like, that's something that's always been kind of difficult for me, is like, because I'm finally now at this point in music, I'm playing in 2 bands that I don't ever plan on maybe leaving ever, like, so, like, in the past, like, I've joined bands and played and then left the band and whatever, and the writing portion of stuff, the only band I've ever really written for was when I started what is now Ronnie Ladobruk and the Electric, but it was like a heavier version of that. And
what was that called?
Black-Hearted.
Oh, that was Black-Hearted. I was going to ask about Black-Hearted.
Yeah.
So that's now Ronnie Ladobruk and the Electric. Okay.
So now it's the same guys, but we're writing a little, like, we're writing different and all that. But before the original lineup for Black-Hearted, I wrote everything. I wrote the riffs and everything. And so then to go into a situation now where it's like everybody's throwing their ideas in is a little bit difficult for me at first to kind of accept, because I was so used to having.
I totally get that.
Yeah, but now I love it so much. Like you said, that synergy, like the four people coming together, creating a fifth idea that is better than anything anybody else.
Yeah, and that's totally what it is, and I really look for that now. I mean, sometimes there's a few things I found that sometimes, though, like when it was one dude who wrote an entire album, like before he even found the other bandmates, before you even find those dudes and get them involved, you have your product, and that's often pretty something special, you know, because that was just one person who, like, they saw writing an album and finishing it all the way through on their own, you know, they're pretty focused on that, you know, and they got a pretty clear idea of what they wanted. You have to have that to be able to execute an idea like that on your own, you know, so often that stuff's pretty well formulated, like Animals as Leaders' first album, I'm going to say, is just one of the ones I always jump to for that concept, because, you know, Tosin wrote the whole first album, I guess, himself, and then got the other guys in there, and they just learned it, and then after you've been working together for a while, then they all started writing, and then it creates its own identity, that's what the band is, you know, that fifth new thing, that's what the band wrote as a collective, like, entity, you know.
It's cool to see how the sound changes when the whole band writes too. Like, for the first Black Hearted album there, I wrote it all, and like, it was it's a little different to me now listening to it, because all those songs mean so much to me, and it's because I wrote them, and it's all about stuff that went on in my life and stuff. And I'm the guy who paid for the recording and got the recording and organized everything, and now it's like everybody's sharing their thing. So the songs don't mean less now, but it's definitely, it's like that thing where the collaborative idea now means even more, because it's everybody's experience and everybody's life. Like,
totally.
I guess experience is the word you can use again. It's everybody's idea coming in, and I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Totally. I think that's kind of what makes it relatable too, to that, I mean, the fact that you came up with this thing that, like, came from inside of you, you know, that, like, really expresses you, like, better than you actually can express yourself, you know, something that raw, you know, and honest, which is just the nature of music. Other people are bound to, like, to resonate with that, and to, you know, to relate to it, and to vibe on it their own way, because they felt that in their life too, and the things that they went through was a meaningful experience for them, you know. So now when that comes up, when they're listening to your music, you know, because of a lyric or a certain chord just makes you hit whatever, you know, somebody cut you off in traffic, so you're just, like, a little extra vulnerable right at that moment or something, you know. It can just be whatever. I really think music is really good for that, like, what do they say, it's something like it expresses the world that we live in, you know, it's a reflection of the world. It's really cool. It's all just vibrations and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of my favorite things is when, because I write all the lyrics for our music now in Ronnie Ladobruk, The Electric, and one of my favorite things is after a while we'll be playing these songs, and the guys have asked me, what does this song mean? Like, what is it about? And then I find out what they thought it was about, and then what I wrote it about. So it's cool, because then the next time we play live, I look over at them and I'm like, that's what he's jiving to on this, and that's totally cool. Love that so much.
That's something Kyle from Dizzy Mystics, who wrote the lyrics, was talking about when we were learning the material, and I was listening to the songs a bunch before I, like, actually got the lyrics, you know. I was just learning the bass and stuff, and then I was learning the lyrics, and most of them weren't what I thought, like, well, not most of them, but, like, you know, the punchy ones, the thing that right at the end of the phrase that's always, like, the first and the last word that stick out, you know, that'd always be the significant one that I got wrong. Like, there's this one line that I think it's help me catch my breath, or catching my breath, something along that line.
Right.
and I was catching my friends just reflexively. I've been like singing along to it like that this whole time, catching my friends. So then I go to learn the backup vocal for it, and it's catching my breath, but I keep saying friends, and it's funny. And there's a whole bunch of situations like that. There's another one, let's unite and do it upright. And when I first heard that line, I thought it was let's unite and do the earth right.
Nice.
Which I liked that line.
Cool
You know,
too,
I
that's
totally
cool.
dug it. Kyle's just like
No,
because talking about partying and stuff. So it's totally funny, like because it's funny that everybody relates on that same experience, but like in a different way, because they're all gonna have like a different thing that they interpret it as, you know, because it just comes through your filter that way. And
that's what makes music so beautiful, is the interpretation of it. I think so.
Yeah, totally. One interpretive thing that I still am working on getting super beautiful is, and I could just ask you about, is I guess sort of in a way voice leading. It would be like a simple way to jump right into that, but sort of like voicings in chords and stuff, you know, and just like how do you pick, how can you pick which one to use? Because say if you're just doing like a 1-4-5 thing in a blues, there's a billion and one different ways to do it, you know, and I don't specialize in the blues or anything by any means, so I haven't developed like a huge repertoire of different tricks and stuff, but even when I noodle around and I'm playing, I can like as I'm going, I hear dun, 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 and then it's like I can hear it pulling in different directions, kind of, you know, and you just kind of choose, like it's like a Goosebumps.
Right. Yeah.
Walking bass line is like a choose your own ending.
Oh,
it's
it's crazy. Like well, for me, before we start talking about kind of like the theory and the voicing and stuff, I'll admit, like I taught myself how to play guitar, so I know theory up into a certain point. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not like a super advanced theory guy, so when guys are like, that's a major ninth chord or something like that, like,
right.
I'll know it if I hear it,
right,
but I don't, like,
and then see, even with the voicings, like a major ninth chord, you know,
is that even a thing?
It totally is, and it's more of like funk, you know. Funk music uses a lot of nines. I think Jimi Hendrix might have used a ninth or two.
Oh, that's okay. That's where I know it from.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like huge Hendrix fan. He's my favorite, so.
Totally. I'm not sure if that actual one chord that he does I can't even remember in what song it is. It's actually been a little while since I was jamming on the Jimmy.
Down on the Jimmy, I love that.
Yeah, there you go. That one chord that he does, they call it the Jimi Hendrix chord.
Oh, Purple Haze. Like
Purple Haze, that chord.
Yeah.
What type of chord that is?
I think there's a ninth in there.
Yeah.
And an 11th, I know.
Oh yeah, that explains it right there. If there's an 11, it's jazzy.
But
I love all that stuff.
Oh,
I mean, and it goes the roof. There's no roof on like how advanced you can become at that. You know, that you just get into like new magnitudes of order. You just get into new classes, and like, you know, I know a bit of theory, but depends who you ask. You know, like really. I like to try and define things like that way, because I think it's a useful way to talk about them with other people, and it's
for sure.
It's useful to be able to say, like, oh, if you're playing a funk song and you don't know it, you're just jumping in on a jam.
Yeah.
You're playing a funk thing, do some ninth chords, it'll be funky, you know.
Yeah.
Or if you know how to do like tritone substitutions on a 2-5-1 or something like that, you know. That's really like the only substitution I know, and I probably couldn't do it very effectively, but. Yeah.
Well, no, all that stuff. All that stuff is stuff like I'm actively trying to learn right now, but when it comes to chord voicing and stuff, like, it's all like just messing around. Like, we have this one song that we used to play called "Helpless," and it was like an octave, and I just thought it sounded so cool because we played it in drop D tuning, and the way the octave rang. With the bottom note, it just sounded heavy, and it was like, I really love that stuff. Like anything where I can kind of make the guitar sound beefy with some melody within the chord, like
right.
I'm good on that.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of the playing with the like a chord with the open note underneath it.
Yeah,
Because that way, like when if you ever really want to like get a really good clear example of what the tonal qualities of the different modes are, or any different scale or key or whatever you're using, you know, you want to learn how this A major scale sounds, you know, you don't really hear it in flavorful context when you're just playing that scale by itself, but if you play an A major scale over an A, you know, then it's in context. You play A Lydian over an A open string, you know, then you really get that dreamy tonal quality that Lydian has.
It's like a Steve Vai vibe almost.
Totally Steve vibe.
Yeah, so that's
Steve vibe.
Steve Vibe. That's awesome.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Jam with Jimmy and Steve Vibe.
Yeah.
That's sick. But,
song names.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, all that stuff, it's so weird. Like, I understand all that stuff musically. Like, if you gave me a guitar and I could play through the modes and all that stuff, but breaking it down is something I'm still working on.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, why don't we take a little break here so that I can make sure we can continue to film and yeah, cool, excellent. Okay. So we're back. Excellent. Cool. That was a great break.
It was. Yes.
I hope everybody else had a great break too.
Got to go use the washroom or
yeah.
maybe shred a lick.
Yeah. Maybe you were so inspired that they just had to go. Like, oh, there's so much musical creativity just storming about right now that I have to go write a lick right now. I can't keep together.
Exactly. There's been moments like that. I used to keep a guitar in my truck at work.
Oh yeah.
And on my breaks to just go write something.
That's a sign of a musical genius right there. Can't remember who it was. There's one he's one of those YouTube bass players, and he had like some backwards K's and V's and stuff in his name, you know, some Svledlidov or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. I wish I could say his name. He looks like Flea, and he plays like Flea, and he just like has this big Flea-looking thing. And there's stories of him like, yeah, I'd go to work and I'd have my bass in my car, and I'd just go outside at lunchtime and just jam all lunch hour in my car by myself. And people come by looking at me like, what are you doing in there? And I'm like, isn't it obvious?
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time my manager walked by and I'm sitting there, I'm like running some scales in my truck, and she just looked at me, and she's just like, I get it. And I was like, well, yeah, like, I don't want to be here. I want to be playing music. So
yeah, no, that's the whole point. I definitely get like that. There's, you know, you see people, musicians through history. I've heard countless times different people say that, like, when they just get an idea, they'll just like scat it into their phone or just sing it to themselves. Dan Jangila is the craziest for that. Half the time when we're out, like, we just were at Protest a Hero last week at their Fortress 10-year anniversary tour, which was really awesome. That album had a big impact on me and my playing, so I was like had to go to that 10-year show. And Thank You Scientist was opening. They were really good, and I can't remember the name of the band. It was from Australia there, but they were quite good too. I've heard of them. Oh geez, I went on a tangent there. But yeah, Dan always he was just scatting and like that's such an under way to say it. Like, it doesn't cover the experience of what he's actually doing to say he's scatting, because he's just boop-a-dab-a-doop, and he's dancing around. We're having like a back lane beer, you know, somewhere in the exchange, and he's like, oh guys, I got this idea right now, and I gotta do that. And I mean, if you know the dude, he's just he's always always like that. Yeah, awesome. He's great, and it's really fun working with him, because he just gets you amped up and gets the creativity flowing. And yeah, it was real. We just had our first jam yesterday in quite a while, because I moved my amp away from there when I joined Dizzy Mystics, so it was a little bit of a ways since we jammed, and I didn't really have a means of transporting my amp back and forth, so I just went and rented one from Long and McQuaid, and we had a jam, and it was quite fun. It was really good, and we were talking about kombucha, because he's been making kombucha for a bunch of years, and I just made my first batch. You'll have to try some.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'm still working on different flavors, and he was suggesting stuff to me. Like he had these little star things that taste like licorice. I can't remember what do you call it. They have a strange name. I didn't know. It was like,
I know what you're talking about.
I just started with like an A. I feel like there was like an A and like a C that sounds like an S.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, and then just scatting around and throwing ideas around.
Yeah. Oh, that's wicked.
I don't even. What is it called? Maybe you could look it up even.
Hey, that's There's this word they always throw around.
It's the licorice flavored star shaped spice. Yeah, how do you even find that one? I don't even have it here either.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'll look it up.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Do you find when you haven't jammed with a band or somebody that you usually jam with in a long time and you come back, it's different, but in a good way?
Totally. I even find that, maybe even more so, I find this in the case where, well, I guess they're a little different because I don't go my own, like me without playing is what I was going to say, is like I get a lot of new creativity and a lot of new ideas after I've taken a break from playing. Like say if I like went on a trip somewhere or just like I went somewhere and I couldn't play for like a week or a couple days or something, I think I've only gone without playing for like 2 or 3 weeks one time in my entire career, and that was just last November because I went to Spain and I was like, well, okay, that's kind of worth it.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
can come back and just bust my ass practicing when you get back.
Yeah.
And like in a situation like that, I felt different. Even in my own band, it's only been a couple weeks. It was a little different. And then for Dan, we both spent a lot of time like developing weird timings, and like kind of the downfall of like trying to spend so much time writing mathy music like that is that you kind of it can take away from the groove,
Right, yeah.
And it can be hard for those type of, like for me and Dan in a long time, it was like we used to talk about how it's like, oh yeah, sometimes just to hold like a 4/4 groove can be the trickiest thing. Playing like a simple rock song now can be hard because I'm so used to like changing it up. Like I play 4/4 but only for 3/4 of a measure,
my whole musical career has been 4/4. I don't think I've
right. But that's a good example of me and him when we jammed yesterday. We've both been like getting a lot more into the groovy stuff lately, and for years we've been into the groovy stuff, but like I think we both just have been putting a little bit more emphasis on, I know I have, on like playing to a metronome and just not like having that free flow tempo when you're just like practicing, but like actually like keep it on like a grid, and so it was interesting doing that, because before when we tried to freestyle it together, it would kind of be like we'd both be kind of like starting and stopping and almost like I go try and do this, but then you play off each other. It's like, I wasn't expecting that one, that sudden change, and then but so I'm gonna try and like play off that by another sudden change, and it's like, and then he reacts to it, and it's kind of this whole like game of tag that happens when you're trying to like guess what the other dude's about to do, and it's like always going to be something random like that. But when you just lock into the groove and you play something that's maybe a little bit more predictable in those like improvised jams, those were going a lot more smoothly after a little while. Our material was a little hadn't been played in a year, so that so but most of it was there. I mean, it was just a matter of like polishing up like some of the harder bits and then getting used to playing with each other again. Guitar Pro is really great. I use Guitar Pro a lot. All of our songs are on there. We all spent the time to tab it all out on there, so that's really a good practice tool for me, and I have pretty good confidence in being able to like take something on Guitar Pro and loop it and highlight it and just loop it at like 25% speed. And then you can set the speed to increase. And something I heard Evan Brewer say, I think he was like, sometimes you need to play it at like 75% speed and then go up like 5% speed or BPM until you're at speed, and then sometimes you need to play it at like 1% speed just for fucking ever. And then it just clicks, Have you had much of those experiences, sort of, where it's like, so there was a riff you weren't getting,
Oh, man.
and then there was a weird like mental switch that like made your hands get it all of a sudden?
So when we did those Pantera tributes for Peg United, the riffs never really gave me a lot of trouble, even though I listen back and like nobody's gonna play like Don Bay Darryl, right?
Of course,
so
of course.
I just did my best. But when it came to the solos, holy crap! I had to metronome. I had to literally slow down, put the song in a program, slow it down, and try and figure out every little thing he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like I still, like, once again it goes back to the thing. People are like, "Oh, that was really great." Nobody's gonna play like Don.
You're your own worst critique.
Yeah.
Everybody is, you know, yeah.
But that was the time where it was like, okay, so I got to metronome it, and then eventually, like, I think it was like couple weeks before the show, I finally got it. I was like, oh, that's how, and then I got it. And even that day that you filled in on bass when we did
that
thing
was for Tyrants Myers tour bus fundraiser when their bus broke.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
They were about to go on tour, yeah.
Yeah, so when we did that, the Pantera tribute there, that was easier because I'd done it before, so it was just a matter of metronoming it for that morning, and then when we practiced at Fred's garage there, I had it down because I'd already done it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that garage. I was jamming with Fred and those guys in. Oh, actually, no, that was the first time because I joined Forged in Fire through that experience. That's how I met Fred.
Oh,
I
nice.
was playing with you doing those Pantera covers.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where I met him through. And then he was just like, yeah, my band needs a bass player. You know, like, you gotta come play bass for us. You know? And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. You know, and I came, checked it out, and it was cool. They were just, they were doing like sort of 80s metal, like a little heavier, like classic thrash almost.
Nice,
a little like deafened classic thrash. Yeah, and it was a really fun experience for me actually because I don't use a pick, and like they had a lot of like galloping rhythms and a lot of like metal tremolo picking and stuff, and that's real hard with your fingers. You can there's a few ways you can do it though. You can use 3 fingers, for example, but I just decided that I had recently decided that I wanted to be able to play anything that I could play fingerstyle. I wanted to be able to play that slap, right? And like not like have it sound like abrasive shit either, you know, like actually like tastefully. And so Forged in Fire was really a good experience for me to hone that because I just started playing like 90% slap bass there, and I got just like and I'm like because I'm doing this double thump like kind of that Victor Wooten stuff, so I can get actually twice the economy out of a pick, right? I can get 4 notes in an up and a down stroke. And I just like and that's that, or at least that's the concept anyways. So yeah, it works really, really good with metal because it kind of compensates for that pick tone as well. Slap it, you get super aggressive, you know, like you can have a just do that, but then with that, and that's okay, you know, but if you really get that, it's kind of, there's different ways of doing it, you know, and then, yeah, if you start getting, like, the single note runs, those are really hard to do like that, but I'm trying to get more. Gotta get you to show me some licks.
Oh, it's fascinating to watch you do that, like, that's...
It's fun. I like, I'm really, like, I'm just craving to just keep expanding that. Ever since then, that whole thing that I got really started on, like, just before Forged in Fire with APHELION, when I was like, hey, this slap bass, this sounds great in metal. It's so, like, aggressive. And then, yeah, I joined them, and I just started doing it all the time. And then now in Dizzy Mystics, I still play, like, and it's a lot of it's, like, palm muted, or a lot of it's not really slap bass, but just playing overhand with my thumb, and, like, really close to, like, finger picking. Like a guitar. There's, like, this, you know, like, say, for example, like Tower of Power, like a 16th note funk, like a something like that. I can't really think of one, you know, but 16th note groove with that thing. You could do like this kind of slapping while also palm muting, and I mean, you can't really.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
And then yeah, you know, when you write stuff, you can get really cool. So there's cool Dizzy Mystics riffs where, you know. you know, and it's all slap.
Yeah.
But then that song's called Rester, and it's a soft song, so I can't I was playing hard there, but I can't just hammer on it because it'll sound like shit, you know. So half of it I palm mute it. I'll turn up the lows and the low mids to get a real nice warm tone, or I'll cut the treble sometimes a little bit. Or I also kind of change up my tone a lot between songs, but
So going on that, do you use so you use the controls on your bass? You don't really have a pedal board, do you?
I do. You want to see it?
Yeah, for sure.
It should be actually right around here. Un momento, super play. Where is it? Yeah, right here. But no, actually, most of my tone does come out of my pedal board. But I do use the onboard EQ a lot as well. I use that because I don't for little quick adjustments. I don't have to run back to my amp. I don't have to bend down to my pedal board. So I just
okay, cool.
All this stuff. Just I only want to have to hit a thing. I don't want to have to come and move any of these sliders, which I actually did yesterday at that, for example, because I usually have it set for Dizzy Mystics, but again, jamming with Dan, I haven't in a while, so I had to adjust a bit of tone.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, say for a song like Rester, I'll turn up the bass, I'll turn down the treble, make it a little warmer. Other songs that are more aggressive, I'll turn down the bass, turn up the high mids or something, or the low mids or whatever. And sometimes I'll even do that from part to part within a song. If I want to have this one part just be a little extra oomph in this way, I'll do that. And it's that's the whole point of having it on board, is so that you can do it on the fly like that.
Yeah.
And I developed this funny little tweak that I do. Every time there's in certain songs, when there's a little rest, I'm always checking to make sure if my volume knob's up.
Oh yeah.
All the time, and if there's more than 3 beats of a rest, I'm always just habitually, because it's there was maybe once or twice, where
it's down,
where it was down, and it was oh no, and now I'm just constantly afraid of that happening. It's almost, it never really happens, and it's always in a song that's it'll happen. If it happens, it's in another one that I'm doing volume swells or something like that, and I'm always checking it in a song that it's not really super, critical.
No, that's awesome. That's something I wanted to ask you about that, because I'm not a gear guy. I have a pedal board, but it's literally a tuner, a wah pedal, and a distortion. But I'm gonna take the distortion out. I would just plug into the amp and you do the old AC/DC onboard volume, tone, and
yeah, totally.
And that's something I really want to get to doing. But it's so funny because, I find whenever somebody will come up to me and want to talk about gear or something, I have no idea, what's...
It's a whole thing. That was something that I was thinking about more recently, too, because I have these two old combo amps that kind of, I think the Transformer Blue or something in the head gave, but I think the speakers are still both good in them, and they're both 12s. So I wanted to get some wood and some wires and learn about the whole process and make myself a cab, and then I was oh, well, maybe I want to get into making cabs. So that's something I'm thinking about, actually, is getting into making cabs. But when it's one thing just for the average musician or whatever to know about gear because you have to use it, but people who make the shit, and when you want to compete with people who went to carpentry and engineering school and who've been working with electronics and these type of things their whole life, and they live and breathe it, and it almost gives you this feeling no amount of studying can catch up to that natural place that they just got, Victor Wooten starts playing bass when he's 1, what how are you supposed to do anything about that?
Well, that's just speaking of that, there's I use Rev amps.
So does Alex. He just got one. They're gorgeous.
They're
it's so good. Yeah.
The best.
Which one do you have?
I have the 740.
Okay.
And
that's not the big one, or is
no,
that the big
it's
one?
the lunchbox.
Right.
Kind of
yeah. Great. I think it's the same one.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. But the thing is I went to NAMM with Rev.
Oh, so jealous, by the way.
Oh, it's a
dream of mine to go to NAMM one day.
It's a great experience. Great.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about music, the music industry, and you learn a lot about yourself, how you deal with seeing all this happening, you learn a lot about yourself. But I remember talking to Dan, who made Rev Amps.
Yeah, Dan Trudeau.
Yeah, Dan Trudeau. Yeah, shout out Dan Trudeau.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I think I had chatted with him once or twice on the old Facebook, but we haven't actually met. But
he's
somebody I'd love to have down.
He is. When you say the word genius, that's Dan Trudeau. Like, he was showing me. I remember we're walking through the halls of the Nashville Convention Center. We just grabbed a coffee, and he's explaining to me the circuit board of a Rev, and he's just showing me it. And I remember looking at it, I'm like, there's no way, even in like a million years, I would ever understand any of this. All I know is that when you put that in that head, that sounds good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd really like to get into that stuff, because I'd really like to just be able to like take like any sort of tonal quality, and be it anything, be it like Alex with his thing, and he also has an Axe Effects, right? So he has the Rev going and an Axe Effects with the MIDI controller, so you can get like Mario Brothers sounds, like Guitar Pro tones, and he has these cool things. It's like he has this one thing that like it's sort of the effect. It's an 8-bit tone, but then the effect of it is sort of that the polyphonic tracking doesn't work super well.
Oh yeah.
And it uses that on purpose, you know, and that's the effect. So you hit this chord, and it's just like this crazy like 8-bit Godzilla destruction, you know. But even then, he'll play a chord and be like, "Oh, can you hear the tone? Because we'll have headphones. We use a jam hub and we do headphone amps, jams. Yeah. It's great."
I want to ask you about that.
Oh yeah. And so he's asking. He asked me if I think he asked me if I could hear the cab sim on his tone in the headphones, and I was like, listen to it. I was like, oh, it actually kind of sounds like half raw and half cab sim is what I said to him, and he was like, oh, that actually makes sense because I'm actually doing both signals.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh, well, cool, points for me, I actually got that right, you know, and then, you know, that's just one little thing of learning the mechanisms of an amp and how it works, and then, like, if you wanted to, like, you know, brands of amps exist because each brand has their own characteristic quality and tone, and they get that because the dude who made it knows how to like put this wire in a different spot, and it affects that frequency differently, you know.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff. Yeah.
Going back to something we were talking about earlier. So you were saying how when we jammed that Pantera set, then you met Fred, and then you went on to that. Like, don't you think that's so cool how that works? How the music, like, you could not know somebody. Like an example is, before I started playing in a band, I was such a big fan of Tyrant's Demise. And I was like, I followed that band, I loved their CDs, I listened to their music, and then it's like, then I met Keith and Mike and Steve and the guys, and then you become friends with them, and then a couple years later, we're playing in a band together, and it's like, dude, like I heard about you being a crazy bass player, and then I met you, and it's like, then we played in a band.
I was so
cool.
excited when I found out they were like, yeah, Ronnie needs a bass player. I was like, oh yeah, please.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. It's such a small community, and it's like everybody is so amazing, and you, like, chances are you're gonna play a show with, like, it's so cool how one opportunity creates another.
Totally. I mean, well, and Winnipeg United, like, just that, like, not even all of the other just Winnipeg United and the effect that has, you know, in bringing together the community. A lot of, like, metal scenes in different cities, they don't have that. That's really quite a cool and unique and special thing. It's not completely unique. I think it's based off of something that's out in New York or something else United it's called.
I know there's a Roadrunner United that happened,
it could be
but
something
I don't know
like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it's something like that. Yeah, but you know, most cities don't have enough passion in their crowd and people like Steve who are going to go and put it together. And then that was, I mean, it wasn't really involved with United when we did that, but I felt like it kind of was. It was the same people. It was like just a couple weeks after the show.
The same.
Yeah, all the songs were still fresh in our heads, and it was different people from different bands. That's the whole beauty of it, is that, you know, it's everybody in the band is a different person that hasn't played with anybody else that you're in. Sometimes there's like you got two guys from the same guy or two guys who used to be in a band together, but typically the point is all the members are dudes from different bands, and you just come together for a few weeks or a few months before the show and crunch time. And, you know, I remember I wanted to do Between the Buried and Me, and I was like, that might take more like all year of practicing, but that would be pretty fun to do that.
That'd be insane. I remember I know it was Sam Jacobs, and I forget who the rest of the band was. No disrespect, but they did Meshuggah.
Oh yeah, jeez.
Holy
Can't remember who was
crap.
drumming for Meshuggah. If it was Tim Friesen, maybe.
I think it was
Yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Friesen. Yeah.
He also did drums for Gojira.
Oh.
One of those years, and then I think he did Textures after.
He did.
which a
Yeah.
lot of people
Textures
really
was last year.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, and then all of the performances at United is really something like, there's really a crazy energy. Like the System of Down sets from the last 2 years were both just off the chart. Like I remember the year before last, like I was doing Mudvayne right after System of Down this last year, so I was kind of like getting face painted and everything. But the year before that, I was right in the crowd for the System of Down, and just like I just remember coming out of there just like adrenaline up, man, and like
Just so
my
pumped,
skin
yeah.
was like tingling from all the energy, you know, and you just get so excited from that stuff, and it was just so hype. It was really, really great. And then, you know, that effect a big impact like that in one night, that lasts for like months and like the whole year, and
Yeah.
it compounds over. And like when Diz Mystics was touring and we were in Alberta, and we were kind of talking about like different musicians from different towns, you know, and we got onto the thing of like, you know, Winnipeg has this reputation for having really intense musicians, you know, and like a really high standard for musicians and musicianship, and it's like people in Winnipeg kind of get that, and like it's funny, some people know it and some people don't know that, you know, and some people who don't are kind of like, really, like I'm not so sure about that, but people who do know that are like, no man, like there was this one band, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Sweet Talker. There was a Sweet Talker and a Sweet Grass, both from Alberta. One from, not Red Deer. Oh, it was Red Deer, not Medicine Hat. It was Red Deer, and the other one was from Edmonton, and they were both great, and we had great times with them. Yeah, and they were saying that, yeah, every time we see a band from Winnipeg come out here, they always, like, blow us away, you know?
That's awesome.
And we're always super impressed with Winnipeg bands, and it's like, you don't want to, it's like what you were saying earlier, you know, you can't let all compliments go to your head and stuff, you know, and because you gotta stay humble to stay working on your craft, you know. If you get to this point where you're like, oh, like I'm fucking, oh really, like Winnipeg bands are great, that means I don't have to work at it anymore. It's like, no, as soon as you get there, you're done.
Well, when you look at like not just the metal scene, but like a lot of
freelancers are
like
all nuts.
Darren Savard, like for guitar players, there's Darren Savard, Brendan Wall, like all these guys are playing with big time country acts that are touring across the world. They're from Winnipeg, like, so you're totally right, and you do hear that from everywhere, that Winnipeg has the craziest.
It must be the winter. Like that's always the conversation that comes right after that. Is like, oh, I wonder why.
Yeah,
you know. Must be the winter.
Yeah.
I guess other places have winter too.
I think it's just such a rich musical history here.
Yeah.
That's almost like, it's almost as if it's like, it's known by everybody, but it's just kind of a part of everyday life. But when you step back and look at it, like I remember I took, I don't know if you know who John Iverson is.
No,
he's a really famous rock historian, and he lives in Winnipeg. And we did this tour, and we saw Neil Young's house. And I don't want to give the story away because it's something he tells on the tour.
Right. But so go check out the tour.
Yeah, go check out the tour. But it's just like, it involves Bob Dylan, and it'll blow your mind because it's like, sometimes when you're from Winnipeg, you think it's such a small place, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's huge.
Yeah, no. And I mean, that butterfly effect, you know. When I can go real down a rabbit hole talking about the butterfly effect of you know, how far your actual influences go on stuff, you know. But never mind when you're talking about music. That's one of the most effective ways of touching like a mass. But yeah, no, you're quite into like music history and stuff. Hey, it's something I've been meaning to. I mean, I studied a bit of like jazz history. Is probably the most effort I've put into like learning history, aside from stuff you just naturally learn, like about rock and, you know, the classics and stuff everybody knows. But there is really like a rich history to get into it, and especially like rock and roll, and it really is also like, for one, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
It helps you to like connect to it and like actually like realize that there's a lot of investment behind the music and the passion that you're doing. You know, there's been a lot of people in history that were so incredibly passionate, and when you get into that same state that they were in, you feel that, you know, and you can pick up on that collective effort, and it's really cool and great, and such a powerful place to be in.
That's the biggest thing. It's like sometimes people will kind of joke on me because I'm so optimistic, but I'll share a picture of Jimi Hendrix. I'll be like if it's his birthday, I'll say like "Happy birthday, Jimi." Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And people will kind of joke on me about that.
Yeah, people are like, oh, it's from this back in the day or whatever.
Yeah. Well, they'll even say like I've had people tell me you're too passionate, but like going back.
It's a good one.
Yeah, like I don't get. Is that a bad thing? Like,
I mean, I guess it depends how it comes out.
Yeah. Well, like, but going to what you're saying, that's the biggest thing. Like for me, I guess it all comes down to when I first started playing the guitar at 14 years old. I never knew when I was like that age. I had no idea where my life was gonna go. Like everybody in my middle school had like their thing. Like there's the guys good at soccer, good at basketball, good at. Everybody had their thing. I had nothing. So when I picked up the guitar, it changed my whole life. Like I finally had a purpose. So now I love going back into history, and I love seeing like pictures of Jimi Hendrix, who's like my favorite guy. And he's sitting in a chair practicing his guitar, and the caption says like this was Jimmy in Chicago or something like that, somewhere. And it's like, I think like just knowing and appreciating where you come from as a musician, like without Jimi Hendrix, without B.B. King, without like all these guys that like Les Paul, like without all these guys, the thing that my whole life is based on would not be there. So I have such a respect for all those guys, and like
I mean, when you think about a picture, or when you hear about like stories like, what was that, when the Beatles and Elvis got together? I think it was like a one-time thing, and like everybody in the room was like, wow, there's a lot of like musical like power in this room, you know? And that's like, that's not a thing about like Alive in the World right now. It was, but that's like, there hasn't been a musical gathering to that level, like arguably since then, you know, like of that. I mean, you can include like probably NAMM's probably had some pretty nutty stuff happen, and like the Grammys and stuff like that, you know, maybe, but
like
the history, it's a part of it. I mean, like everything that we're doing now, like you're saying, it wouldn't be there like that. Like those, everything that Jimi Hendrix did, and everything that B.B. King did, and Led Zeppelin did, and the Doors did, and all these, they're part of music now. Like it's like language. Nobody has alive today has ever said an original thing, you know, like words, like nobody's ever come up with a word that, I mean like, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a metaphor, people coin new terms, and there's new words added to the English dictionary every year and stuff like that. Okay, but you know,
you are right. Overall, it all comes from the past, and
you got to look at the history to see what it's made from. It's like some of these, you see these radicals, you know, I don't want to put anybody in a group or anything, but just some people that like clearly didn't look up, like know about history, you know, and have certain like tactics that have gone very, very bad in the past that like seem appealing on the surface, but then it doesn't go so great.
Well, like going back to music there, like if you look at the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, like how many that one performance of them on Ed Sullivan created almost like everybody that we look up to and we learn from. Like, I don't think there's a single musician, well, there's obviously exceptions, but there's musicians that's what got them into playing. Like, and I remember for me, if you want to put up a video on that sure, you try. There's one video.
If you could find it on YouTube, it might even be a little easier for you. But I could try it. Yeah, here.
Oh yeah.
What do you need?
It's Eddie Van Halen.
Here, you can type it there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'll plug it up on here. Alright, yeah, hopefully the YouTube thing, because I don't, It's tricky when you put stuff up online, but I'm pretty sure it won't catch like the censors or anything. Music can be tricky, but
I don't think it'll. It's a live performance.
yeah, and if it does, I can adjust the image afterwards, and it'll be good.
Right on. So like before you play this video,
Okay.
I want to give a little insight into this. So I was 14 and got my first guitar, and I'm learning songs or whatever. Didn't know what lead guitar was. And one day my parents were like, you should try learning Eruption by Eddie Van Halen, like when you get a little more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is that? I've never heard that in my life. They went downstairs, loaded up this video. This video changed my whole life.
Wow.
This video of Eddie playing Eruption, as soon as I saw that guitar was that.
Mm-hmm.
People will be like, Ronnie, you want to come party this weekend? No, fuck you, I'm playing guitar.
Just playing the licks on the phone. You hear that?
Yeah, yeah. I had people at parties phone me and ask me, like, just a funny thing, years later, because I wouldn't go party or do anything like that, because I wanted to be like Eddie Van Halen. People would phone me from a party. They'd be like, Ronnie, we're partying. We need you to play some guitar. Put your amp to the phone.
Yeah.
Play them.
That's great.
Yeah.
At that point, you should just start playing parties, you know?
Yeah, well,
I actually kind of wanted to start getting into that myself, even.
It's great. Like,
playing parties, yeah.
It's great. Like, it's, that's, so after I did that, that's the thought that went in my head. I'm like, why don't I just go play parties? Then we played basement parties.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I was just watching a video today on like networking and stuff, and they're saying, yeah, that's one of the best ways to like build a good fans is house parties.
Yeah, yep.
And stuff. Not even like the venue, but like you go there and like you give them a little something special too. Like maybe you bring your lights or just the whole fact that you came there to give them that experience is something memorable for them typically. And you know, a house concert is great. I think that leaves an impact on people when you're just like right in their face.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's intimate like that. It's great.
After this video, I'll tell you a funny story about a house party.
We actually may have to wrap it up pretty soon, but yeah, I'm sure we can figure that. Okay.
Still get goosebumps when I see it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and then you look at that and you reflect on like your story and just I'm sure how many people like have been affected like that by this video and other similar videos, you know, and it's you can't deny the impact of that stuff, you know. It's yeah. You can almost like see the historical implications.
Yeah.
And then even when you think about what this piece actually did too, like he was one of the first guys to do that tapping like that. Everybody started doing the single string tapping after this because it was just like that's the epitome of it. You know?
He changed the whole game.
Yeah.
And just that, like, when you're 14 years old and you watch that video and you see that arena full of people and he's just got their attention and they're all like, it's like, that's the dream. That's the...
Completely. How do you... Now, like, I'm not sure when exactly this was. That doesn't look like a... Oh, that was in 94. Okay.
This is a year after I was born.
Yeah, and 94 was honestly... I've heard Steve Vai say... The 90s was sort of like a a low period in guitar playing. I think.
Yeah, something like
there was
that.
a hand.
Yeah.
He might have also said high period. Could be talking about something else, but.
I disagree with that. Like, if you listen to a lot of
Mhm.
grunge, there's like people always say grunge killed solos and stuff. If you listen to a lot of grunge, there's some great guitar playing. In there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Right along that line, we did some Soundgarden covers of my band for the first time last year, and really like took a deep dive into Soundgarden, and was like, yeah, it's tricky stuff. Like it's now that I know it well, it's like I can't even say it's simple, you know, because it's like they actually like it was hard for me to learn. Like I was saying earlier, like sometimes just like a straight 4/4 thing can be tricky. It's like we play these hard songs, these technical songs, and then we come to these ones like down, down,
Yeah,
down, 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 down. Like, what the hell are you doing there? He's got the tuning is I think it's like C D C C B B A or something like that. It's like and the drummer came up with it, obviously.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's some ridiculous, like the low half of it is in drop C, and then there's two of the same string, and then the rest is in standard tuning, but the top one is down also. You know, and it's just a weird tuning for this, like the song Limo Wreck.
Yeah.
Such a good song, though. That song's just creepy. Like, that was one of the songs that when I was playing it, I just could just get so into just like that one note, just down, down, down. And like it's just so eerie in the singing, and it's just like this descent.
So good.
Really cool. I like that song a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we might be out of time here anyway. So,
no worries.
yeah, thanks a lot for joining me, bud. And we'll have to have you back.
Yeah, right on. Thank you so much for having me. It's
absolutely.
an honor.
Yeah, totally.
Right on.
Cool. Thanks for watching, guys.
Cool. If you're